Welcome to another exciting episode of American Warrior Radio, coming to you since 2009. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place, American Warrior Radio. We're always efforting to bring you news, notes, interviews, and current events for all things military and veteran related. The bumper music for American Warrior Radio is provided by none other than combat veteran and mill hop artist Stephen Hobbs. Thank you, Stephen. With that said, let's kick the tires and light the fires and get this episode off the ground. Hi, everybody. It's Garren on American Warrior Radio. We are privileged to have a special guest. They're all special to me, but this man, he and I have become close friends. He's a fellow believer, and is none other than Lieutenant Colonel retired Tim Thomas. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, Garren, doing fantastic, man, and great to see you on the other side over there. You're looking very dapper as usual.
Please, enough. Okay, so there's so much we can talk about, but before we talk about some of the specific items I have on my list here, tell our audience a little bit about yourself. You know, what prompted you to go in the military? You know, just kind of walk us through.
I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, and of course, my dad was a minister, a music minister in the Assemblies of God denomination, but he had spent 3 years of his life in the United States Navy, and always talked about the love of country and love of the service that he had when he was in the Navy, and talked and reminisced a lot about the good times that he had and the patriotic feeling he had of serving his country. And so a very patriotic family, and I had also many other family members that served.
So it's like a tradition almost within your family.
Yeah, really, it really was. And so, so when in high school, I was an athlete and I played football. And after my senior football season was over with, I was offered a football scholarship to a place called Marion Military Institute. And what they specialize in is the early commissioning program, what they call the ECP program. It's an accelerated commissioning process, where you get commissioned after 2 years, after going through several years of training or several summers of training. And then, of course, you transfer to a different university to complete your degree and then try to compete for active duty slots. And that's basically what I did. I went and played some football and so
you're pretty good. You were a stud on the football field. Huh?
Well, I tried.
What position did you play?
I was a defensive back. Yeah. Oh. And so that really, I guess that's kind of the story of my life. I'm an overachiever. The abilities that I have, even though they might be few, I've used them to the best of my ability. I've worked very hard, whether it be, in the profession that I'm in, whether it be in the weight room or, training on the track to try to get ready for a season. As far as work ethic, above and beyond probably most, but just an average guy that just really kind of overachieved in life. And so after I finished up at Marion and then finished up my degree at Auburn University, I was selected for active duty and started my career as a 23-year officer, in 23 years totally in time and grade in the United States Army. And just I loved my career.
What was your MOS, Colonel? Tell us what.
Yeah, so I was in a program called the Branch Detail Program. So my first 4 years on active duty, I was a field artillery officer. And absolutely, I'll be honest with you, Garren, I absolutely fell in love with field artillery, being a red leg, and actually had the opportunity to deploy to Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and actually perform my wartime mission as an artillery officer. I was a fire support officer and called in indirect fires on Iraqi OPs. And so after that event was over with, my DIVARTY commander, my division commander were saying, well, hey, we would really like to try to keep you field artillery. And, it's a bureaucratic process that we have to go through, but we want to try. Would you be interested in staying field artillery? And of course, I jumped at it and tried to stay field artillery. But unfortunately, that wasn't the plan for Big Army, Department of the Army. So I ended up, after I finished up my time as a field artillery officer, and then what happens is you stay in your combat arms branch until you make the rank of captain. And then once you make the rank of captain, well, then they they switch you to a combat support or service support job, and I was a quartermaster. So I spent the rest of my life, rest of my career as a quartermaster officer after 4 years in field artillery, and I truly became and truly began to love the quartermaster profession as a logistician, because what makes the United States Army more unique than any other fighting force on the face of the planet is the logistics tail that's involved in how well we support, our forward deployed elements and how we project power strategically across the globe. And that's all logistics. It doesn't just snap your fingers and it happens. It's all rail, it's all air, it's all, boats. And so just a fascinating field to be in. And really you can't, the Army's not the Army without your logistics tail. And so
we were talking to Therese on a previous interview, and she mentioned the same thing, that this stuff that happens behind the curtain, behind all the fanfare, like the artillerymen that you were,
right,
it don't happen unless you have the logisticians, you called them.
Yeah, exactly right. And so I really enjoyed my my 23 total years in the military, and got to go to some fascinating places. I got to serve my country, and really going back to what I was talking about earlier as far as being an overachiever, my initial goal when I became an officer was—
hold on a second, I want everybody to understand this is a very humble man. He has humility running through his veins. So when he says he's an overachiever, he's not giving himself a pat on the back. He's just stating a fact. So
right. Yes, sir. And so yeah, initially, once I got my commission and I was selected for active duty, I was just so enthusiastic about being able to serve. And so my initial thought process was, hey, I want to do one contract. I want to serve 4 years. And then once I get through with that 4 years, then what I want to do is I want to go into coaching. I want to be a football coach and coach defensive backs. And that was kind of the game plan. And lo and behold, I did 1 year, and that was fascinating and enjoyed it. I did 2 years, and I did 3, and I got the end of my 3rd year coming up on the end of my contract. And then I met my wife, Heather, at Fort Stewart, actually Hunter Army Airfield, Georgia, in Savannah, while I was stationed there. And we started dating, and then shortly thereafter got married, and bam, we started starting a family. And so then I started thinking, you know what, this Army stuff ain't such a bad job after all. With all the fascinating places you get to go, plus the benefits, right? The medical benefits. So we decided to become an Army family. And so that's
because your wife is a veteran as well, for those.
She is. That's right. And that's how we met. She was stationed at Hunter Army Airfield in one of the attack battalions, aviation attack battalions, as a petroleum NCO. And so she did the fuel trucks that filled up the helicopters and the planes with fuel handler. And just by coincidence, bumped in and met her off base at a gym one day. And, we started dating. We were in different units, obviously, so we weren't in the same unit. And the rest is history. So we got 3 beautiful kids. My oldest, Tommy, is 20. Actually, he's fixing to be 30 here pretty soon. Or no, he just turned 30. Man, my correction. And he's married, and he's getting ready to have a baby here in November. So I'm fixing to be a grandpa.
Woohoo! Good for you. Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
before we get too far afield, though, in your personal history, because we love that. Right. But you mentioned you did your 23 years. So everybody, we're talking to Lieutenant Colonel Tim Thomas, retired Army.
Yeah.
That transition, because this is American Warrior Radio. We want to share good information. How did you find that? Because you weren't even planning on spending an entire career with the Army, but then you did, and you loved it, you grabbed onto it. Tell us about that. When you did go to retire, how was that?
Well, it was a little frightening because again, you're trying to learn how to do this and all the steps you need to go to make that transition smooth, and also make sure you take care of your family. So obviously when you're stationed on a post, you go through the different briefings to prepare you for retirement. And, during that process, you meet all kinds of people that are headhunters, that talk to you about possible jobs based on your skill sets that you could possibly do. But I guess the thing that really kind of gripped me, that made me really want to stay here, is my oldest son, Tommy, again, one I just spoke about. Mm-hmm. He was in his freshman year at Bureau High School at that particular time. And he said, Dad, he says, I'm tired of moving. Can we please just stay here? Let me graduate high school from Bureau High School, and let's set roots down here. And so, man, when you have one of your kids tell you that, man, it's really hard. And then from there, God just worked it out. So the
tell us about that, because you had that entire career serving our country. You're continuing to serve our country. What do you do now?
Right. So as part of that transition, the principal here at Vera High School at that particular time was a guy by the name of Mark Tormone. He had put in for an Army JROTC program and hadn't heard anything back from the Department of the Army. So when he heard that I had my retirement paperwork in, he said, "Hey, can you help me?" And I said, "Well, what have you done?" And he explained to me what he had done. So I made a few phone calls up to the Department of the Army and found out what he needed to do to try to get funded for the upcoming school year, which was the 2010-2011 school year. And so Department of the Army told me what he needed to do. We did it, submitted it, and lo and behold, he got funded for that upcoming year instead of having to wait 3 or 4 years like he thought he was going to have to wait. And so after we were successful in doing that, he says, "Okay, you're the guy I want to run it. You're my senior Army instructor."
Nice. So you are the chief instructor of the JROTC at Vera High School to this day, even, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I've been doing that. And this is my I'm starting my 14th year, and I have decided after this year that I'm gonna go ahead and retire from teaching and step out and do some other things. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We have one of the largest battalions in Brevard County. We're 150 cadets this year. Normally we're between 150, 180. After COVID, we suffered a little bit during the COVID time crunch, and so
as did many actually worldwide, basically.
Yes. Oh, yes, sir. And so what happened was our numbers really haven't recovered since COVID, but we're seeing some good movement now to get back to where we were at pre-COVID. And so we're probably going to be up to 190, 200 probably for the following year, which is kind of what's normal for us. So yeah, we're one of the size wise, we're probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the county. Our extracurricular teams, our drill color guard, our rifle marksmanship, our Raider teams do extremely well in the county competitions, and we're one of the top 3 teams in the region. And of course, that means usually we get to go to state championships, at times as well. So the program is a really good program, and it's great as far as teaching kids values that they need to have that they're probably not getting. Discipline, right? And those Army values that we talk about all the time, which is loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And those are crucial, because if you look around in our culture right now, we're not seeing many of those displayed. And so, this is a values-based organization, and there's not very many of those that are left now. You have the Boy Scouts, you've got maybe a couple more, and of course, really JRTC is really it.
So that's a big gap to fill. But you continue to do that, shaping these young minds into becoming productive and hopefully loyal, faithful servants of the flag too. Because this is the finest country on the planet. It's the finest country God ever devised.
That's right.
It's only that way because of people like yourself and our brothers and sisters that are willing to stand up and serve. And let me ask you something.
Sure.
We can touch on a lot of things, but let's talk about the PR&R retreat that you were invited to go on last November. About 130 vets, AVET Project Recuperation, Reintegration retreat. What did that mean for you?
Oh my goodness, man! You talking about an inspirational trip, and it was sensational. And I was able to take my wife, and we were able to meet other veterans that were in the local area that were of similar age and had gone through similar stuff as far as what we did in the military and some of the places that we had deployed to. And then, of course, the program that you put together through AVET with all the different speakers that come in and talk about, issues that people might be having with PTSD or problems people might be having with being dependent upon drugs or alcohol, or just even finances. I mean, that information was so well done and so well received. It was fantastic. And in addition to that great information that was put out, well, then also you get to, spend some beautiful time out on a cruise ship, getting out in the sun a little bit, getting a tan, going to a couple of the beaches there and the Caribbean, and it was awesome. So it was
Because the idea
fantastic.
behind that, we do land-based PR&R retreats also, but on the cruises, it's nice. You can leave everything back on the shore. It'll be there when you get back.
And be there, that's
This
right.
is a time for all of us to get together, share
Yeah.
some knowledge, talk about shared experiences and things like that. And you mentioned the VA benefits talk that we put on. I
Mhm.
know AVET Appeals has helped you personally with
Yes.
your claim before the VA. Just for a moment before we close, tell the audience what it was like for you as an officer retiring, the first engagement you had with the VA. Was it good, bad, otherwise?
Yeah. Well, I think there's effort that's put in to the service there at the VA clinic here in Vera. But at the same time, I was really frustrated with the service that I was receiving. I'm speaking for myself, but it seemed like every time I'd go into a VA clinic, they would change out my primary care doctor all the time, and so I would have somebody for 6 months, then I'd get somebody else in, and I'd have to go explain everything that I already told the guy previously about. And so to me, it was almost like I was a mouse on the treadmill, and I was just going around in circles, So it got a little frustrating there. And then, I've got some disabilities associated with my service, with some injuries that I sustained. And then obviously as you get older, right. And we talked about this, as you get older, those injuries, they don't improve. They just
No,
get
they don't.
worse, especially after 55. And believe it or not, I am over 55 now, believe it or not.
Well, you don't look it, brother man, but you make some valid points, and that is if a veteran out there watching this is having an issue with a primary care provider being changed out and you have to retell your story and reestablish yourself, it can be very frustrating, but
Yeah.
stick with it. The VA is there as best they can to help
Yeah.
propel us into a positive direction. And it's about perseverance, just like it is with so much of the mission while you're on active duty in the Army. You got to see through to the other end.
That's right. That's right. And so, as I was speaking earlier, those injuries that I've received or sustained, I've just gotten worse over time. So luckily I was able to link up with you, and I found out that you kind of specialize and you're an expert really in Garren, your reputation, you're considered one of the best, what they call them, is a DSO?
Your claims agent is what
Claims agent.
yeah.
Your reputation.
Non-attorney practitioner before the VA. And honestly, that's what AVET Appeals is about, is
right.
we can only take select appellants, but if you've got an issue with the VA, like Colonel Thomas had, we're going to go for it. We're going to do everything we can to propel your claim to the point that you are satisfied. And a lot of guys and gals are being run roughshod by the VA because they don't have somebody in their corner to coach them and give them some direction. So that's kind of what we provide. And I'm glad we were able to help you. I know that we're not done yet with yours,
right.
because so many people will take information they get from the VA. It's a negative rating decision. They throw it in the trash. That's not the answer.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly right. And I think what happens is people get overwhelmed with the bureaucracy, and then, well, how do I fight this? And they have no clue until they meet somebody like you that says, okay, well, hey, this is how we have to do it. We've got to do this. We got to do that, and you kind of put a plan in place for me to kind of go through that reevaluation process and kind of eliminate all the guesswork that I was doing on my own, and really just made it almost, and I hate to oversimplify, but almost painless for me, because you laid out a plan. You need to go here. You got to see this doctor. You got to go here, see this doctor. And we did that, and we were able to get my disability increased as a result of those efforts.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because it does mean a lot to hear that kind of testimonial back in my face, because we're motivated to help our brothers and sisters in arms, as I know you are, and you continue to be. And just before we close, though, because you mentioned you're going to be retiring after a career in the Army and then a career serving these young minds through the JROTC. What are some of your other aspirations? Because you ain't done. You're too much of a hard charger to be done.
Well, again, I don't know. I'm also a local elected official. I sit on the Melbourne City Council, and I'm in my second term there. And of course, that doesn't conflict with what I do with Brevard County Schools during the daytime. I do it after hours. But sure. So I'm trying to decide if this is something that I want to pursue once I retire from teaching, and I'm not sure it is. But
you're leaving that option open, because this is something I spoke with a previous interviewee, Sean Parnell, And we need more veterans, whether they're combat veterans or just veterans that have served honorably within our Department of Defense, to step up and provide some leadership for our communities. Like you said, Melbourne's a big city, so don't make light of that, but you've served on the city commission. You may have aspirations to go forward. I want people to understand that it's there. It's there. Yeah. If you have a message and you're driven and you want to see some improvement, you can do it too.
Right. And we'll see, I'm praying about it, that, obviously if it's God's will for me to go that route, I'll go. But there could be something else too he wants me to do, and whatever his will is, I'll follow it. So I don't believe anything happens by chance. I do think our lives are divinely directed. And so I'm trying to figure out what his plan is for me right now. I don't think I know quite yet, but all options are open for sure.
Exactly. We just have to listen. Sometimes it's a soft whisper. But brother, we've been talking with Lieutenant Colonel retired Tim Thomas, amazing man, continues to serve our nation by shoring up these young minds and filling them with great information through his JROTC unit. You're an inspiration, and I wish you every success, and hopefully we'll catch up with you later on down the road on American Warrior Radio with an update.
Oh, yes, sir. Definitely. And thank you, Garren, for everything that you and Kim do. And I mean, y'all's level of dedication to veterans and military families is just unbelievable. I can't believe how busy you guys and everything that y'all try to do to help people. And I know a lot of times, people don't give you recognition or a pat on the back, but I'm telling you, man, I appreciate it. I see what you do. And I wish you and Kim all the best and Godspeed.
Well, awesome. And brother, I just have to add to that, all the viewers out there, if you like what you hear, share this. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're all volunteers. Nobody's getting a paycheck. This is about helping each other move further in the direction that we want to go. And God is my personal inspiration always, and my guide. And I know he is yours too, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, brother. And
thank you
again, folks. Don't forget, thank AVET. Hi everyone, it's Garren Cohn with American Warrior Radio. I'm here with my good friend Christian. We're here to deliver a very important message about a crisis in our land.
Suicide prevention, more specifically, veteran suicide prevention.
22 a day are taking their own lives. This must stop. This can't continue. If you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please know that God has tomorrow planned for you. Don't take your own life. And just remember, suicide is a permanent solution
to a temporary problem.